Hi, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Hope you enjoyed this Game Industry Insight, a look behind the scenes at game development. And be sure to subscribe and you can pitch future video topics. For today's Industry Insight, we're going to be taking a look back at Steam Greenlight. No, I didn't say Steam Direct, as we've covered that several times already in the last few weeks. But by the time you're watching this video on YouTube, it will be 2 days since Valve has officially pulled the plug on Steam Greenlight and making way for Steam Direct, which I believe is going to be coming out on the 13th. And whether you love it or hate it, Steam Greenlight was a very important part of Steam's growth and a major element towards the rise and success of the indie game market over the last few years. So, in order to understand why Greenlight was what it was, and kind of having this little memorial service for it, we need to go back to the late thousands and maybe like the first year of this decade. And as we've talked about before, Steam from 2004 was a much different beast than Steam was in 2007 with the orange box, and then after the first Steam Summer Sale kind of blew up the platform. And when that happened and everyone wanted to rush onto Steam, Valve was presented a very tough prospect. Originally, when it came to Steam, Valve would basically vet all the games that would be, or all the games that had an application to get put onto the platform. So someone would look at the game, play it, see what was good, what was bad, and then had to make the determination as to whether or not to put it onto the platform, offer developers their contract, and move on from there. And the pros and cons of this should be pretty obvious. The major pro, of course, was quality control. Basically, the human factor prevented anyone from trying to cheat the system. If your game was an asset flip, or wasn't finished, or was just a very bad game to begin with, someone would obviously see that after spending who knows how long playing, and the game was cut from the store. The problem, though, is that human factor can get in the way of everyone having a fair chance. And there have been some horror stories, especially from about, I think, like 2010 to just before Steam Greenlight was officially put out, of developers having so much trouble getting on the Steam, even if they had great games. For instance, when I spoke with Vic Davis from Cryptic Comet a few years ago, we talked about how he just could not get onto Steam whatsoever. And if you piss off someone at Steam, or piss someone off at Valve, and that person just so happens to be looking at your game, well, guess what? Your chance of getting onto the platform was dead and gone. And this was, again, during pretty much Steam's complete and utter dominance of the market. Long before GOG, Humble Bundle, itch.io, and of course stuff like Origin and Uplay. And there was a time where, and depending on who you talk to, this could still be true today, that you either were on Steam with your game, or you didn't make indie games, because it was just that much of a big factor. And when you had someone or someone's being the gatekeeper, this caused a lot of great games to either be stuck in a limbo of trying to get onto the platform, or just never managing to get on. A more famous example of this would be Soldac Entertainment, which I know that a few of you watching this are fans of. And I can't believe I forget his name. The lead designer talked about this, that they had nothing but trouble getting onto Steam. And for many years, none of Soldac's games were being sold on Steam. This includes stuff like Din's Curse, Drox Operative, and some of the older games. I just looked up, his name was Steven Peeler, so sorry about that, Steven. And when I first played Din's Curse, I did that on the Stardock Central platform, which then was eventually bought out by GameStop. And it wasn't until at least a few years later, which, by the way, kind of leads into our talk on Steam Greenlight, that his games were finally able to get onto the platform. But again, for the likes of Cryptic Comet, and I'm sure a lot of smaller indie games as well, they never managed to get on. Now, talking about what the exact process or the requirements to get on the Steam in the pre-Greenlight era, that is something that is pretty much between the developer and Valve. And unfortunately, I don't have that first-hand experience. If anyone would like to share what it was like, definitely leave a comment below. But the problem, of course, with having this option was as more and more developers were coming out and more games are being put in for application, Valve was getting overloaded. And as we've seen and what we'll probably be coming back to in a few minutes, Valve doesn't want to manage this. And as numbers grew and grew and grew, and many great games were even posting news pieces or complaining about Valve's policy, they decided to relent and change things. And in 2012, Steam Greenlight launched. And the original concept was this. Developers would pay a one-time fee, I think it was $100, which I'm pretty sure it is because we talked about that on the Steam Direct piece. And this would basically allow you to pitch games onto Greenlight. And what happened was the consumers who go onto Greenlight can vote for whatever games they like and would like to see Valve add to the platform. And the more votes you get, basically the more visible you are to Valve. And when they're ready to add more games on, they're going to look at, from top to bottom, the most popular, and then the second, and the third, and so on. And those games will be added on, they'll get their contract, and they'll be able to be sold on Steam. And the point about Greenlight is, you can put a game literally in any state of development onto Greenlight. You can have a finished game that you've been selling on your own site. You can literally put your Kickstarted project that you haven't even started developing, you can have a Greenlight page open and get the ball rolling. And that was a very important strategy for many independent developers because, again, you are basically tied to the number of people who are voting and when Valve decides to basically look at their lists. And if I'm missing anything or am I not saying things perfectly clear about the Greenlight process, if you went through it, please let me know in the comments below if you'd like to clarify or add any suggestions or comments to this. Because again, unless you actually did Greenlight, just like with going through the Valve process, it's not something that is readily known to the public. Now, of course, when Greenlight first launched, it was met with great praise. Suddenly, you didn't have a nameless face deciding the fate of your game. You could get your fans and your friends and everyone to help support your game. And thanks to Greenlight, we saw a whole lot of games get onto Steam. The whole massive indie explosion on the platform could pretty much be credited to Greenlight. And of course, if your game does well enough as its first title, then you don't really have to go through Greenlight for your second and your third and so on, once you've been established, which sounds like what they will probably be doing with Steam Direct as well. Unfortunately, the honeymoon did not last long. And as we said in the last part, when you have the human factor that gets pulled in, it can lead to trouble, especially when you're dealing with a company that doesn't like to manage things. And Steam Greenlight quickly became, well, quite frankly, corrupted. Because it's all based on votes, there have been many stories of developers either using fake accounts to try to bolster their numbers, hire people or groups to, go on Greenlight and say, yes, we want this game. Which incidentally, there have been issues of review scores, so reviews faked on store pages, but that's another story. And there's even been actual group companies and people who have tried to make a living out of this, contacting developers saying, if you give me so-and-so amount of money, me and my 500 or 1,000 people will all vote for your game on Greenlight. And yeah, that sounds as shady, that is as shady as it sounds there. And this became worse and worse. As I said, when you don't have someone actually managing it, the system just collapsed on itself. And it presented a lot of issues, especially with the lack of quality control. And as we talked about with the Steam Direct piece a few days ago. When someone looks on a Greenlight page and they see shovelware, crap, acid flip, great game, shovelware, acid flip, how is someone supposed to spot the good from the bad? And should someone actually have to wade through all that to find that one great game? It's like going to a junkyard to hope to find that one working washer in a sea of trash to take home and use. But the point is, with Valve not managing things and just letting things go as it did, the system just became a very bad place. And again, we ran into that issue of discoverability. Unless you had a big enough audience to begin with to kind of push you through this crap, no one else was going to see your game. And of course, as things go, if a bad game gets enough reviews or has a lot of people interested in it, it'll get pushed up higher on the search results and the ranking, making it easier for people to find. And if it was easier for people to find, they'll probably vote on it. And we again begin that whole cycle of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer when it comes to discoverability. A few years ago, there was a famous case of a developer putting up a paint drying simulator to try and show how bad the Steam Greenlight process was. And I just want to quickly see if I can find it here. In 2015, it went up. Oh my goodness, so it was posted, and it managed to get onto the platform. A game that's literally about you watching paint drying. And the developer pretty much did it. It's a game where you watch paint dry for 7 hours. That's great. But he did it to basically show how crappy Steam Greenlight had become. And as we've said, Valve doesn't want to manage these things. And we'll be wrapping up with talking a little bit about what this means for Steam Direct in the next minute. But issues like this, the poor quality control, music just started playing, there we go, and more, basically led to this whole thing becoming more and more of a joke. And for developers watching this, do you have any stories, or what were your thoughts on Steam Greenlight? Did you get in during the honeymoon phase? Did you have to kind of fight your way up during the nightmare? Let me know in the comments below. But to end today's industry insight, all these issues and more basically were the reasons behind Steam Greenlight being canceled and now Steam Direct coming next week. But as we've talked about over the last few days, a lot of people, including yours truly, have some serious concerns about just how effective it will be. And if we start talking about that now, that's probably another good 20 to 25 minutes. But time will tell, especially after next week, if this will work. And again, whenever we talk about Valve, they are known for making changes. So it'll be curious or interesting to see how much things will change or remain constant to what Valve said with the previous announcements. But with all that said, thank you so much for tuning into today's Industry Insight. If you're new and you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know if you have any future topics you'd like me to cover in either one of these vlogs or a critical thought. And check back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until our next piece, have a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GWBycer for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.